Hey, this is Jake with Avion. Today we're talking to the Director of Delivery, Brian Mierkey.
Hey, Jake.
Hey, Brian. Glad you're here with me. I do have a question for you.
Sure.
With all your world travels, have you ever eaten an insect on purpose?
I have quite a few, unfortunately.
What was your first?
A locust, I think it was a barbecued locust and scorpion. And then it was pretty much just mealworms, crickets, and random other things that, don't taste as well as you'd hope, but you try.
I think I'd definitely try them, but at the same time, I don't know. There's a gas station close to the office that sells the suckers with a scorpion in it. And they say they actually do sell them. And I just, all right. I'll stick with my donuts and ho-hos. All right. So glad to get this time to talk with you today. I'm wondering this, and people are wondering, what got Avion involved with ultraviolet lighting?
So part of the mandate for quarantining was really to try to separate people to avoid exposure between people. Part of bringing back workers and employees to offices and to facilities is how do we keep spaces sanitized, how do we keep them clean? So a lot of fixture manufacturers are really starting to invest in UVC lighting, ability to be able to have a light that can clean and sanitize bacteria and viruses on surfaces as well as in the air. It's not something brand new. It's been around for a while. But I think what we were brought with from a lot of fixture manufacturers was how do we make something that's safe and also is autonomous to be able to clean and sanitize spaces when no one's in there, without actually having to go reinvent everything. And I think that's where Avion really stepped in originally was we had a solution that was able to provide them the exact design that they were looking for.
Thank you. But what is it about Avion controls that gives us a huge advantage compared to other control companies?
Sure. So one of the things about Avion, our main core architecture is really built around our gateway-free design. And that exists in a lot of mesh designs, but a lot of times you're going to always have some type of route structure. You're going to have some type of infrastructure that controls how messages translate between each other. One of the nice things about Avion is we actually do a full mesh delivery where we're actually sending messages through every device that's around. In a UVC platform, the best part about that, it actually gives us redundancy. So to make sure that a message actually gets where it needs to be, regardless of status or anything that could potentially happen to power or a situation in the building, we're always going to make sure that message gets there. And because UVC can be harmful to skin and tissue, one of the things that you really want to make sure is that no one in any way could ever be exposed to this type of lighting. So based on our architecture and our design, we add a lot of redundancy and safety, which is really what's required for these solutions. Additionally, we actually have a lot more flexibility in our programming. So in a standard system, a sensor really is designed to turn the lights on and off. Someone shows up, some lights come on, someone leaves, lights turn off. They can see where people are just coming in and controlling it and being able to leave and turn the lights off. But it's a standard flow that normal sensors do. Our design allows us to actually have control over what a sensor does when motion sensed. So in this case, instead of actually turning on lights when we sense motion, we want to make sure that if they are on, they actually shut off for safety. Part of that is really, I think, the core of why we've actually accelerated through this industry right now. And while it continues to grow, we're able to fulfill a lot of demand and a lot of orders quickly with that capability.
So you're saying within our structure, we're actually able to, when motion is sensed or when a sensor is triggered, we can actually turn the light off instead of on.
That's correct. So in a sensor per fixture scenario or just a zonal sensor, if somebody actually were to move in the space, if somebody was, happened to be underneath something and came out, any chance of them being exposed to the light is immediately taken care of by a sensor actually turning the lights off.
Well, that is a very safe deployment because I'd hate to be caught in there with those lights going off.
Yeah, they're not going to be good for you.
Can you share with us an example of a project you've been involved in?
So a couple of projects have kind of come up in different scenarios. First was actually conference rooms. So as people begin to come back into offices, the idea is to really make sure that co-use spaces, kitchens, conference rooms, offices, something where there's multiple people coming in and out that are touching surfaces. You want to make sure that those spaces are actually safe and bacteria and virus free. So we started out with conference rooms, and we actually did some signage and information out front so that we could show when a conference room has been used And then after it's been used, it has a sanitizing cycle. And then once it's done, it actually showed a little sign that showed that the room was sanitized. And the purpose of that was really to be able to, where people were in the office and coming in and wanted to use a conference room, they could know exactly which conference room was safe to use. Again, fully autonomous. We know we're matching whether occupancy is in the space or not. So we kind of know when to run a cycle, which is we actually don't run a cycle just scheduled. It's always off of an occupancy. So when someone comes in, they're starting the cycle system, which is watch for motion. Motion, is no longer sensed. People have left the room. Great, sanitize the space, and it's ready for the next one. So without actually having anybody have to do anything manually, a key switch or a button or anything touch related, it actually operates and runs itself fully autonomously. After that project, the next one we've done is actually some bathrooms in an airport. And part of the goal there was really to similarly keep an autonomous state, but also be very, very specific to protect people. In bathrooms and in situations where you have a lot of machinery, you have gaps where PIR motion sensor may not be able to see you. So in this case, we used ultrasonic to really fill the space, and then had redundancy with PIR to make sure that if anybody didn't move for a certain amount of time, happen to fall asleep, take a nap, they're still protected to make sure that we're not actually sanitizing anybody that's in the space. So again, safety is really key. Redundancy is really key to make sure that the system can operate on its own without people coming in. I think that actually will end up being a lot of what the drive for the future will be focused on, is really the fact that this can be done without a person having to go through and actually sanitize the space. It's something that can be done without interaction.
Yeah, and then if they're sitting there on the toilet and happen to fall asleep, I shouldn't have said toilet, but if they're sitting there and happen to fall asleep, then the sensor, once it's sensed, it will just shut the lights off.
That's correct. Ultrasonic is very specific, so any kind of small motion in the space disrupts the wireless waves, and so that you're able to pick up their motion.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. Now, how with all these new introductions, I mean, with implementing UV lighting, how big do you think it's going to be this year for next year?
For next year, I think it's one of those things, as we push for a vaccine and really trying to get that as spread as possible to the entire world, it doesn't actually take away from the fact that spaces are dirty. Everybody touches things. Everybody, there's a lot of eye and hand contact. And what we've noticed this year is that there is actually a lot more spread of things than we would like to admit on surfaces that we all commonly use. I think some of us, have been using hand sanitizer for a long time. Now it's a lot of people who are using it way more being used, which is helping, but it doesn't actually guarantee that every surface that you touch and in any public place that you go is really going to be safe. So I do believe that actually a lot of manufacturers will continue to push into a couple of different spaces. One is going to be, there is an actual nanometer length or wavelength of light that UV can still operate in. It's still being investigated, but it's actually not harmful to tissue. So what we probably will see is a lot of combination lights where they'll have a UV component and an actual lighting component to be able to take care of both lighting the facility as well as sanitizing when no one's present. As they continue to develop that, they may actually be able to do both at the same time. One of the nice things about Avion is we do have the capability of having multiple devices in a single unit, and they can co-function. So we can have both run, one run or the other run, and be able to have flexibility to run that again on occupancy, on schedules, keeping the space safe. As we continue forward, I think we're really going to have a big focus, and I think it will be worldwide, on how it is to really keep spaces safe and keep people safe while they're navigating offices or navigating just even public transit, things like that. So I know a lot of it right now is handheld. You'll see a lot of small portable units that will be cleaning places. Again, without a gateway, we've been operating in those spaces as well. So if you don't want to have an entire lighting system installed, you can absolutely do portable UV deployments. Those you push into a room, you plug them in. Avion runs the countdown to be able to sanitize the space. If anyone enters, again, our sensors are there to protect from anybody accidentally entering into the space. But what you're really going to get is an actual new industry kind of along with the lighting industry as it exists now, which is keeping places safe, keeping people safe, tied into retrofit upgrades and new lighting installations that'll be happening.
That's great. That's a lot of information. So with the Avion system, we can easily go with no gateway, so we don't have to be tied into anything. That's a huge advantage. And Absolutely. Then the other part is with that advantage, we can easily Yeah, we can easily be in the portable units. I didn't think about that with the portable units being plugged in and, have us run the timers.
Yeah, that's correct. So one of the nice things is that part of coming from Avion, having some residential background as well that we've started from, we've actually built in a lot of very simple use features, timers and things like that, built into the actual app. And again, because there is no gateway, because there is no infrastructure, a device can be moved around, or a group of devices can be moved around to several facilities. And all you have to do is open up the app, choose your time depending on the space, or how pre-programmed you have it, put it in the space and let it go. Again, the protection is there. If motion sense, we're going to make sure that we turn off that light, but it does give a really easy solution that can be controlled as well as movable. You're not stuck in having to make sure it's got an internet connection or anything like that. We have seen a couple of it's basically a Roomba attached to a UV lighting unit, and it just drives around. Now, people can't be in the space, but it's designed to try to navigate similar to a Roomba around the room and be able to sanitize spaces. We've seen a lot of issues with those come up because, again, they're needing some type of location tag, usually Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, to be able to figure out where the device is and then how it operates in the space. And so it's a nice thought, but it gets very, very complicated, and we're really trying to keep it simple and safe.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you, Brian, for your time. This has been some wonderful information, and I hope that people hear this, that we're a controls company and that we can be tapped onto any light fixture. And so, yeah, I hope the word gets out there. Thank you very much for your time, and
thanks,
you guys.
Jake.
Have a great day.